What's up, my Cracker Tugas? Joseph Rothschild here, aka MBT, and let's talk Firestorm. Firestorm, the 5th set in the Elestrals Pantheon, is coming out, I guess, in the middle of the year, right? It's like a couple of months out, but we're getting card reveals now. This set does a lot of stuff that I think is interesting. I'm going to give my thoughts on the cards that have been revealed at the time of me recording this video. Maybe I'll do a second one as they release more cards, but I think it's also important to talk about kind of the macro elements of this set's design. So Elestral sets are pretty small comparatively. They're 100 cards, which is not nothing, but also not everything. And it means that these sets kind of have to be focused on a goal or objective. Base set was a little larger than a general set, and of course only had to cater to 5 specific elements, and every subsequent set has been focused around one of the unintroduced elements. For that reason, a significant amount of the card pool was concentrated around that element, with like maybe Thunder getting 2 or 3 cards total. Can't do that shit anymore. Firestorm is the first set that's being released into what I will consider completed Elestrals, an Elestrals that has all of the elements represented on the back of the card in the game, and has to use 100 cards to create archetypes for like 8 different elements. That's a tall order. What we're also finding out is that a significant number of slots in Firestorm are going to be taken up by divine runes that we already have. Now, some of those divine runes are going to be different than ones that we have in those elements, Hestia and Hermes, which we'll get to momentarily, but some aren't, which is cool because those cards are mostly concentrated in the starters that are like really hard to get at this point, but also not cool because that's slots that could have been used for other stuff. It facilitates a better play experience, but it also gives you way less room to work if you want to actually cook when it comes to the set. The way Elestrals is handling this is, I think, making peace with the fact that their element system is not like Magic's color system. It's not like you're going to print a bunch of good cards in Frost and then people are going to play a Frost deck which uses only Frost and doesn't really splash much because the mana's bad. I think we've learned over the last couple of months of Elestrals that it behooves you to play like as many elements as you can possibly sustain so you have access to some of the most powerful cards. Even Lunar Aggro, a deck that you would expect to be Lunar Aggro, is playing like 6 elements. So instead of trying to like force a deck called like Thunder Nexus anymore, I think what Elestrals is trying to do when it comes to Firestorm is force a sort of archetypal gameplay. I don't mean archetypal in the way Yu-Gi-Oh means archetypal, where like you search a prefix and then put everything with that prefix in your deck. I mean a deck with a game plan, unless you're playing Bears, which is an archetype. So far, we've seen a series of water Elestrals that are designed to facilitate Elestrals' first ever floodgate. These are the Champion of Poseidon titled Sluggle, Globby, and Majesty. By the way, real quick, correcting the record on that short that I released in which I say the titles were soft launched and Daybreak, I totally forgot about Morfrost. All Morfrosts look the same to me. So I should start by saying that Old Sluggle is very playable. It's playable because of the way heal works and this quirk of the time rules, but this Sluggle is way more playable insofar as it facilitates a game plan. When this Sluggle receives 1 or more water with the Poseidon's effect, you can special this into a Globby from your hand or deck. Existing Globby is not great, but Champion of Poseidon Globby says when it's cast, you can search your deck for an Atlantis or a Rise from the Depths and add it to your hand. That's 1/2 of a combo that's just a reanimation spell, which is already something that Water has seen success doing, bringing back Oysterus or Caprigal. And finally, Majesty Champion of Poseidon says, while Poseidon is enchanted and this Majesty is in attack position, spirits enchanting Elestrals are water instead of their original element. Now, this doesn't sound like it's crazy, but it is. Obviously, this shuts off the utility of many cards. People would like Full Moon Enchant onto an Elestral that wasn't Lunar Enchanted so that it could dodge like the Nobby effect, for instance. But that's not really what this card does. By changing the spirits underneath any given Elestral to water, unless that Elestral is water, that's going to cause it to become misenchanted, which means its effects don't work. This card reads like Blood Moon, but it's actually just skill drain. This is a huge problem because the way that the ban list is shaken out, there's not a lot of removal spells. This means the way that people have done removal in the modern era is usually by either using a specific Elestral or suite of Elestrals that can get you there, hoping to spike into a card like, I don't know, PTA, or walking over in combat. But there's no fucking way you can walk over this thing in combat, and it's going to turn off Elestrals like Boombat for the entire game. It requires you to have like a combination of Gorgon's Gaze and a must-answer guy that can theoretically out it, and to be in a position where their back rune row doesn't contain cards that can answer your combat step. I think it should come as no surprise that this card is really strong. I don't think it's unbeatable, but I am impressed by it. The fact that it slots into an existing okay water archetype in Reanimator is pretty stellar as well. So that's kind of what Poseidon is meant to be doing. Let's talk about the new Zeus stuff. Zeus has given new life to Elechic, Grypheus, and Voltempest. Voltempest previously was just like the closest thing we have to Towers Turbo. But it's clear the new direction for the Zeus deck is they want you to have an enchanted Zeus and just keep it on the field the entire game, like sort of a protector of your rune row. When one of your guys with the title Champion of Zeus is destroyed in battle, you can bring out Voltempest like a Gores and then enchant it with Thunder, Wind, provided that your Zeus is enchanted and you have nothing else. This is crazy for sure, and enchanting a Zeus and keeping it on your field is already something that a bunch of decks playing exactly Astrabbit wanted to do, but we're kind of missing additional tools to get them into a position where that was really good. I think that's all but solved by the release of Zeus's Call, which if Zeus is enchanted allows you to search your deck for a Champion of Zeus and add it to your hand. That's crazy for a number of reasons, but most importantly, this is a one-cast Invoke rune, which means that Magnaros now has a place to live. Like, you're supposed to be playing the Zeus over enchanting it, so you might as well play Magnaros to get value off that. And now one of the pieces of value you can get actually does something. You can theoretically go like turn 1, Zeus, Magnaros, Nexus to Magnaros, search call off the Magnaros, add Gores. Like, that's insane, right? Let's talk about the Champion of Keon. All we have so far is Urskote Champion of Keon, which facilitates like a lockdown the rune row Brummalinx style of gameplay. I don't think we have enough information to know what their linear play is supposed to look like, but it is worth mentioning that this card is a bear. Let's talk about Hermes. So Hermes is a new Wind Divine rune. They are giving it kind of the Aeolus treatment in that it does something similar. You can way over enchant it and then use an effect that is comparable to a powerful spell card in Yu-Gi-Oh! Twice. Aeolus, of course, is reinforcement of the army, but Hermes is Foolish Burial. At present, there's not a lot you would actually want to Foolish Burial. There's a couple of cards that are fine, but he gets a lot of them. Carry On and Carry Off get an entire new line with the subtitle Champion of Hermes, and when sent to the Underworld with Hermes effect, they can be special cast from your Underworld using a Wind. The Carry Off can target an Elestral and expend equal to the number of enchanting spirits of that Elestral to destroy it. This card's insane. It's crazy that it turns Hermes from like a value engine that gets specifically carry off to repeatable removal spells. I just talked about how there's like no removal in Elestrals right now, and this really complicates that. Although I'll admit it's really expensive to be like, I'm paying 2 for Hermes and then 2 for carry off for like a 4 mana EQ that requires a Garnet. That said, it's still probably playable. They also have Exaltair at present, which, if special cast from the Underworld can't be destroyed in battle the turn that it is cast. That's cool, but right now we don't have a fantastic way to make that happen. I imagine we will get that way in the coming weeks. And finally, let's talk about Hestia. Hestia is a strange one. She's a Fire Divine rune, and on cast you can enchant up to 3 to her. She can disenchant 2 to special cast a 1-spirit Fire Elestral correctly, provided your opponent controls the same number of Elestrals as you or more. This is really expensive. It means you are paying 3 to special cast a 1-drop Fire, but the payoffs for doing that are immense. Fire would really like to get to a ton of powerful 2-drops that it now just can. Think of course, Lavalith, but not only that, things like Enfornax. There's so many powerful guys that it has at its disposal, one of which just came out. It also looks like Fire is going to be the domain of bears, because there is a Champion Scout on special cast can search for a Champion of Hestia and add it to your hand, and a 3-drop Majursa, which is also a Champion of Hestia, and on cast can destroy cards up to the number of bears on your field, including itself. I'm actually surprised to see an effect this powerful. I know that 3-drop Elestrals are functionally allowed to win the game, but this like really wins the game. It's like Raigeki plus Heavy Storm. And Bears is close. It should be mentioned that Bears is not that far out of the realm of playability at present. Getting a bunch of new shit is great for it. So we'll conclude with this one, High Bear Nation, another card for the Bears strategy. It can only be played if you control a bear Elestral, and you get to target up to 2 fire or frost spirits in your underworld, put them in your spirit deck, or enchant them to an Ursa Den. So like putting them on an Ursa Den is great because it gets you access to all of this stuff. It puts spirits on board for a potential Nexus, and a worst case scenario, it's just sort of ambrosia. So to put into perspective, what I mean when I'm saying things like there is a macro level shift in terms of design when it comes to Firestorm is that they're not just putting good cards into the void. Like, these cards are meant to play a linear game plan with themselves and the cards that they reference. That makes deck building a little easier, and it makes it a lot less likely we're going to see like a fun meta shakeup as Bean Soldier TV realizes how good Equilinx is, but it also means we're going to be playing games that are streamlined, that are much less vibes oriented, that are a lot less about winning tempo and trying to determine what's on top of your deck, and a lot more about understanding what your opponent is playing and trying to prevent them access to a game plan that they have built their deck to be as accessible as possible. In short, it feels like a transition from like 2004 Yu-Gi-Oh! To like 2008 Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know if that's good or bad, but we will find out together. And I guess we'll make a couple more videos as spoiler season continues. Bye-bye.